what we are going to be talking about today is deathbed phenomena. And if you remember, it wasn't too long ago we talked about
near-death experiences.
Near-death experiences, and this is different, similar-ish, but different. So this isn't with the near-death experiences. You know, people would clinically be dead. They would experience something, you know, and you can argue, it can be argued either way, that it's, you know, afterlife experiences, paranormal, the spirit world. You can argue that it's, you know, simply brain function and reliving embedded memories. And you can argue either way, but that's not what we're talking about today. Today what we're going to talk about is what people do, the phenomena they do, the things that they say before they die, and these people stay dead. And I don't mean for that to sound cold and callous.
They're dead and they stay dead.
Yeah, it's not one of those Princess Bride moments where they're nearly dead.
well,
This one,
Doc has had a few of those.
This one isn't all the way dead.
And he's had a few of those too.
I get a little of both. That is what I do.
So I found this one to be very, very interesting. I find this very interesting. Even, as you know, with Lurch, he was a mortician for quite a few years, and just sharing some of the stories that he has to tell. And, you know, and with him, they're dead. They're actually dead, and, you know, not coming back, kind of a dead when you're embalmed.
Yeah.
And some of those are fascinating.
After they're embalmed, they're certainly dead. They're not coming back. I can guarantee that. But no, I mean, it's something that I did for 10 years. And during that time, I had lots of discussions with family members talking about their loved ones. And it's something that happens quite a bit. I'm more of a religious type myself, and I've had discussions with people that are agnostic and atheist about different experiences that have occurred. But, you know, a lot of times people see other members of their family that have already passed on, having conversations with loved ones that are already deceased, and other family members there in the room with them, and, you know, there's a moment of lividity where they kind of come to a little bit, and they start having discussions with other people that can't be seen in the room, perhaps by them only, and it happens quite a bit. My stepdad, actually, he passed away about 1.5 years ago, and he told my mom about people that would come and visit him shortly before he died as well. But it's a pretty common occurrence, being visited by loved ones and relatives, just in preparation of crossing over to the other side.
Right, and it's interesting because in the research that I did, you just hear the same, and I don't want to say the same stories because everyone's stories is a little different, but you hear the same sequences, the same phenomena over and over and over again, and so it kind of tells you there's something to this. And again, it can be argued that it's, you know, chemical, it's a process of the body breaking down, or you could say it's paranormal.
Yeah, that's something that I've talked about with other people that aren't religious, and they've had really good counter discussions as well about you know, endorphins, or not necessarily endorphins, but just chemicals being released by the brain that cause hallucinations, auditory and visual hallucinations.
Euphoria.
Yeah, there's all kinds of explanations. You can write it off scientifically, or you can write it off by faith, and it's all just a matter of perspective.
Right. I tend to take a spiritual approach. I believe in an afterlife. I think it's absolutely something that goes on in our next phase of life. One of the gals I talked to, her name is Martha Atkin. Well, I didn't talk to her. I didn't call her up on the phone and have a chat with her. I watched a TED Talk.
She's dead. Martha's dead.
She's actually alive. She did a TED Talk, but she worked with, and I'm not sure, I was actually going to look this up and I didn't have a chance to, but she's either a doctor or a director at a like a retirement home or a hospice center. And what she said was really interesting. She says that with the modern hospice centers and people going into hospice and things like that we've taken death out of the home, because in the old days, you know, you'd get old and you die at home surrounded by your family. And so back in the old days, family was more accustomed to seeing all these phenomenon, you know, the stories and the reaching out and all the things that we'll get into here in a minute. But it scares people now because they don't see it. The only people that really see it are the nurses. And it's interesting, I'll read you a couple quotes later on. Even doctors aren't really aware of it, and Doc can let us know a little bit. And I'm sure it's not all doctors, but
Oh, go ahead.
I will say, having working in the hospital, I would much prefer to die at home.
And that's something that actually it does happen more frequently. A lot of people do get put into nursing homes, but a lot of people, I mean, from my experience, a lot of people do have full care hospice nurses that come to their home. My stepdad, he had a hospital bed set up in his downstairs room, and they had a hospice nurse come in and check on him periodically. But yeah, a lot of people don't feel comfortable with it. That's something that's unique about the United States, is that we kind of put everything behind that black curtain. You don't want to see it. Death is ugly. It's not pleasant. It's not pretty. And I think a lot of people don't want to be exposed to the unpleasantries. You go to other countries and they kind of celebrate death. They have parades in the streets and carry their casket over their heads and have all kinds of celebrations and stuff. But here in the United States, we're kind of like, when I was a funeral director, we were kind of like the plumbers that came to fix the overflowing toilet in the middle of the night. You walk in, you're very respectful, very somber, and you take the body out discreetly. It's covered in a blanket. You put it into a car that has tinted windows. There's no advertising, and it's very. I think a lot of people just don't want to be exposed to the unpleasantries.
Yeah. Let me add to that. I mean, there's a lot of times, even with patients that come to the hospital, they are do not resuscitate patients, do not intubate patients, no CPR, on hospice, expected to die at home.
Yeah.
And family members panic. And what they do is they call 911, they put this person in an ambulance who does not want to die at the hospital. They come anyway because the family is afraid of death. And they'll ask me things, well, I can't get them to eat, I can't get them to drink.
It's normal.
Yeah, they're constantly sleeping. What's wrong with them? And my answer is they are dying.
Yeah, they want to go, and you need to let them go too.
right. There's a doctor, his name is Dr. Christopher Ken, and he said that in medical school, and again, Doc can give us some of actual doctor insight on this, but he said at medical school and, doctors in general, you're trying to defy death. You're trying to keep people alive. You're trying to give them a better quality of life. And he says, and when he says the doctor's mentality is defy or deny.
Right. That's probably true. One thing that I've learned over time is that there is a huge difference between prolonging someone's life and delaying someone's death. Once the quality is no longer there, it's, I think, a lot easier for me to deal with this idea that we're marching down a path that it takes us all. We're all going to die.
Right. And I don't remember which two of these I read a whole bunch of stuff, and then I lost my notes, and so I had to do different research. It's pretty awesome. And then in about a half hour, I'll find the old notes. That's how it works. But so one of the things that both of these, Dr. Ken and Martha Atkins both said, was that learning about it and knowing when it happens kind of takes that fear away. And so it's not a bad thing. When it's time for people to go, it's time for people to go. So this is from Martha Atkins. She said that there's actually been about 600 years of research. And I don't know if people have been researching this over 600 years or if they've just taken information from the last 600 years. But either way, 600 years of research. There's several things they say to watch for. One is tracking things under their eyelids. She said specifically her mother was in the process of, being towards the end of her life, and she watched her mom, her eye track something under her eyelid, and she said, "Mom, who are you seeing?" And her mother, told her, "I'm seeing this person and that person," and Martha said, "Do you see my brother, who had died about 13 years previously?" And she goes, "Oh yeah, he's been sitting over here in this chair for, the last couple of days. You haven't seen him?" And Martha's like, "No." Another really common thing is reaching for things. You'll hear this over and over and over again, of, just reaching
Doc's
for the
nodding
sky.
his head.
Yes, they do.
Yep. Another thing was they'll be met by friends or family members, and they'll talk about not only family, but a rugby team. My rugby team came, or the neighbors came, or my good friend from college came. There was a man that they talk about who was so afraid of dying for whatever reason. They didn't get into why he was afraid of it, but he was so terrified. And part of it was he didn't want to meet up with his family, so there must have been some
They
sort
had
of
been
abuse.
abusive. Yeah,
Okay.
they said his family had been very abusive to him when he was a child.
Right. And so because of that, his family wasn't there, but there was a little 7-year-old boy that would come and sit with this man. It was an older man, like in his 90s, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And his wife said that she just kind of ran with it because, she knew, and she was a little bit more informed and wasn't afraid like, some people are. And she said, I just ran with it. And she said, this little 7-year-old boy, according to my husband, was there for about 2 weeks. And for her, she said it was just very comforting knowing that they were comfortable. Whether it's real, whether it's embedded memories, whether it's hallucinations, I think it brings comfort to not only the families, knowing that your loved one is passing comfortably, but it brings comfort to them as well.
Well, I was
Yeah.
just going to say, too, that's probably why the 7-year-old boy showed up, is because he feared having to face his family, and that might have been just like a messenger to help comfort him in his final days.
Right, because if it's a real thing, the Almighty, whoever you may think that is not going to send someone that you dread to die, because I think that our higher power wants us to be happy and wants things to be comfortable and the transition to go smoothly, and so he's not going to send down people that are going to make you upset.